Hi guys, as promised, here's the tutorial on how to do that True Detective movie titles, stencils on images effect that you were asking about. So you can see that I've got 3 bits of footage here. I've brought them into After Effects. These are bits of footage that you used on your training course. Of course you can do this with anything. The important thing here is I've got this rotoscope movie. It's a silhouette of someone. So I'm dragging that rotoscope movie down onto the 8 bits per channel icon there. And remember that that's fairly important for certain things that you're doing in After Effects, notably motion tracking, track camera, and when you use some of the brushes tools. So here it goes, and we've created a composition with this rotoscope movie. And so what we're going to use is we're going to use the Rotor brush tool. There's 2 brushes here. There's the Rotor brush tool and the Refine Edge tool. We're going to be needing both of these to get this effect. So here I am on the Rotor brush tool. And remember, brushes, the important thing with them is when you want to use a brush, you double click to put it on a layer. So there it is. Now you can see there I've got a green brush. That will allow me to add bits that I want to cut out. You can see there I'm painting with that. If I hold down the Alt key, the brush turns red, and then I'm able to subtract parts from it. Take my finger off the Alt key, back on green, and I can paint them back in. Note that you don't have to paint all in one go. You can paint little bits. You can always add to bits and stuff like that. So here I am adding the rest of this around here to give me a cutout of this guy using the Rotor brush tool. But you'll remember that there is a little problem with the Rotor brush tool that sometimes occurs. If you scrub through, you can see that when you get 2/3 of the way through, sometimes it loses the track. You can see that the pink edge is gone from the silhouette and it's now on the edge. Easy to solve. You just find a frame where that's occurring and you have another draw. So here I am drawing round, and sure enough, that solved the problem. I scrubbed through this and you can see that it's got the rotoscoping all the way through. We've got the pink silhouette all the way around the guy there. So all I need to do now is come off the layer and close down the layer. But before that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to soften up the edges, because the rotoscope brush can sometimes be a bit harsh. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the other brush that's located underneath it, which is the Refine Edge tool. And the Refine Edge tool is pretty simple. What you do is you just paint along the edges that you want to feather, like that. So I'm doing that there and then there. Now I could start adjusting brush sizes here, but what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint a little bit more of a feathered area on here, just to indicate that you can do that with the same size brush if you want to. So I'll just finish that off on this side, and you can see where I get this kind of negative effect, that's where it's going to feather. So when I close down the layer, you can see that on a black background what we've got is we've got a cutout with a very feathered edge. But of course what we want is we want to see footage through that, and we want to see footage below it as well. So back on my project panel, I'm going to drag some footage down, and I'm going to drag this town footage that you remember below, and you can see that that's typically the effect that most people would use for that rotor brush, cutting someone out and having something play behind them. It's not the effect that you want. The effect that you want is to see that footage through him as a silhouette. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to use the Stencil alpha mode. So I'm selecting back onto the Rotor brush, and I'm right clicking on it, and I'm going to blending mode, and then you can see that Stencil alpha appears on that list. And I can click that, and sure enough I get the stencil alpha effect. But it's not the only way that you can do it. The other way that you can do it is, you'll remember this little button down here, which is toggle switches and mode. Now if you don't see that, remember this little icon in the bottom left hand corner can turn that toggles and switches mode button on. When you click on that toggle switches and modes, what it does is it either turns off or turns on the little click buttons where you make layers 3D and what have you. But when you turn that off, you get this thing where you can actually hit that drop away. So you see it normally displays normal, but you can click on that. So 2 ways that you can go for Stencil alpha. 1, you can right click on the layer, change the blending mode. 2, you can toggle switches and modes so that you can see that normal thing. So there's the other way that we did it. So 2 ways that you can do that. So now what we're doing is we're seeing the footage through that silhouette. But what you wanted was you wanted some footage underneath it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some more footage and I'm going to put that underneath. So more footage that you remember from your course, this clone stamp movie, I'm going to drag that down below the other layers. The problem is that that Stencil alpha effect is working down through all the layers, so we're not seeing this clone stamp movie underneath. So what I need to do is I need to put the rotoscope movie and the town footage movie in a pre-compose, so it isolates that stencil alpha effect to just those two layers. And you'll remember that you can do that by holding down the shift and selecting both layers that you want to make into a pre-compose. So here I am doing that. Then you right click on it, that gives you a drop away menu, and one of the options that you'll see is pre-compose. When you hit OK on the pre-compose, the stencil alpha effect is isolated to everything that's in the pre-compose. So sure enough, we see the clone stamp footage underneath. And now if we play this thing, you can see that what we'll get is we'll get that footage playing beneath. I'm going to add, you can see I'm adding a red solid layer here. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to change the blending mode to something like multiply or overlay. And what that's going to give me is probably a little bit more like those titles that you see on that True Detective. Usually it's just a solid color layer over the top of something with the blending mode changed to something like screen, multiply or overlay. So you can see now when we play this, you're seeing that effect. Hope that helps you guys. Cheerio.